So whether you're a part-time or a full-time, that's usually how it falls in place. Full-time teachers accrue time towards tenure. In New York State, that's 4 years to get tenure. If you've had tenure in a previous district, it would be 3 years. A part-time teacher, you don't start accruing time for tenure until you become full-time.
Honestly, on the teacher retention part and acquisition part and mentoring, I think I've covered a lot of things. I had one very interesting research when I was reading about your school district, was also about the PI gifted program that you guys initially had.
Intellectually gifted program here for many, many years, IG program. It was in grades 3 through 6. And at one point it was running two classes per grade level per school. We have 5 elementary schools.
We recently did a professional development for one of the school districts. And what we did for the teachers, we asked them to note down all the tasks that they do on a daily basis, both tangible and intangible again. And then we asked them to segregate it to the tasks that AI can do for them and what AI cannot do for them. And one thing we realized after that exercise, hello, my fellow school leaders. I'm Avinash Bansal, co-founder at TomoClub. And today in our TomoClub podcast series, we have the superintendent of the Three Village Central School District, Dr. Kevin Scanlon. And today's topic we're going to discuss is going to be about teachers' motivation, hiring, retention, which is definitely a topic since COVID, the great resignation, and how we have surpassed over the last 5 years. Although if you look at LinkedIn right now, and if you're an active school leader on LinkedIn, you will see every other person posting a hiring requirement. So, or posting that they have started working somewhere else. So it's a pretty reshuffling phase right now, if I can say that. And Mr. Kevin is a resilient builder. He has been a leader with a great sense of purpose and diverse and challenging past, from military service to a school recovery from a major scandal. I read about it, and it has been a great story. So welcome to our podcast, Kevin. Happy to have you today.
Thank you very much.
So Kevin, before we jump into this topic today, I would love if you give us a snapshot of your journey for our audience.
Sure. So I started my career in the New York City system back when it was not the Department of Education as it is now. It was the Board of Ed back then. I did my observations, and I got my first job offer, well, not even with the degree, because I tackled the kid with a knife, and they hired me to take on the class. Finished my degree and went on to teach at a Catholic school in Connecticut. Was there for a couple of years and taught alternative education in a school district on Long Island, Brentwood High School, for 10 years. And then a couple of years later, I was hired in Three Village as a social studies teacher, became a chairperson, then moved on to Oyster Bay School, East Norwich Central School District, became district supervisor for social studies and business, and then became principal of Roslyn High School in 2005. I was there for 7 years, and in 2012 became assistant superintendent in Three Village for educational services. And then in 2012, I was hired as superintendent of schools here.
Wow, that's quite a long time that we have spent at this district right now.
Yes, good place.
So, So I always start my podcast with a very simple question: what got you into education in the first place, and is that reason still valid after so many years?
Well, it's funny. I was actually a tutor at my college when I was going through my degree, and I had a person say to me, "You're going to get chalk in your blood, and you're never going to want to leave the classroom." And I said, "Oh, there's no way I'm doing that." And sure enough, I did, and I didn't want to leave the classroom ever again. So that really what got me into wanting to stay with the process of being in education. And then I was lucky enough to marry someone that wanted to, have a family, and thought, this would be a great field as well. So she always supported everything I did.
Perfect. Now that's a great. So, was your wife also an educator?
No, she was a nurse, which helps a lot.
At least somebody is definitely making money.
Yes. And she rose up into administration as well in her field. So, but very parallel lives in a lot of things we've done with one another, and always shooting ideas back and forth between the two fields.
No, absolutely. Supposedly the two noble profession. Though in education, I have been hearing a lot that people don't feel that respect from the community which they used to. What do you think about it? Do you think there's a decline in the respect levels among educators?
I think in certain areas of the country, the United States in particular, yes, that is being felt by many people. The way education works, how teachers are paid is through taxes of people within the communities. So whether it's through your state or local taxes, or there's a separate, school district with its own taxes itself, there always is a perception when times are good, teachers are the fools that went into education. When times are bad, it's the teachers are the ones stealing taxpayer dollars. So you can't win one way or the other. Um, but in other countries, educators are put more often on a pedestal in comparison to some of the things we see in the United States. And it's still a noble profession in a lot of different ways. It's been very challenging. People always blame COVID for the challenges. A lot of the challenges have happening way before COVID ever occurred.
Yeah.
So even with our shortages in hiring, COVID just exacerbated it. It existed before COVID even happened.
Mm-hmm. No, I absolutely agree with that. And to be honest, we have more people in education as educators than in the army. So it's definitely one of the biggest employer uh, scheme in the entire country. And there are a lot of people who have been working in this domain. So yeah, I think always it cannot be compared just with the dollar value. There is a lot intangible outcomes, of course, which cannot be measured that comes with education. And you're right, it definitely gets under fire. So what do you think? What would be a one sentence teacher value proposition? Let's say if today there's a one student who wanna be a teacher, he or she is still learning. What would be? How will you define the value proposition for them in one sentence?
I think the first thing is to make sure that they see that the goals or the rewards of this are not going to be, as you said, tangible. And sometimes you won't even see them in the course of the time you're with a student. You might see them years later. I've been lucky enough to be in the profession for 35 years and have students that are now working for me as a superintendent in schools that I taught many
Wow.
years ago. And some now running into some students, kids that are coming through the system. So that's even scarier because it shows I'm getting older. But it's to make sure that the reward is not necessarily going to be something where you're going to get a huge paycheck or you're going to wind up seeing this student going and becoming something very successful immediately. It may be later on in life. And the lessons you teach them may not only be from the books, it may be from the actions you take as a teacher, the influence you have that way. I just had someone last night tell me that one of their students was in their class, and the mother came in and said, they had me as a teacher, and I saved their life." I'm like, never heard, that was amazing to hear from someone. I'm like, didn't know what I did, but something resonated with them across the way. So you have an incredible ability to influence the lives of children and parents too. So what you do and what you say are just as valuable as the lessons you're teaching them every single day.
No, absolutely. I'll give you a very simple example. I used to run a product company before the current one. And whenever I used to see then that was a physical product. So whenever I used to see a happy customer using that product and leaving us a good review, that day I used to have a big smile on my face. And just take that example and multiply with a million will be the experience when a teacher will hear that, you have shaped my life, and not just through one single product or a service, but from every angle. So I think I can't even comprehend the amount of dopamine hit that would be, uh, and for everlasting. So yeah, I think that's a great value proposition if anybody wants to be a teacher out there. So you have taken over as superintendent, right? So what were the three questions that you asked the HR department about teacher retention or teacher support? Like, how would you deconstruct your first 100 days strategy for building trust with the new teaching staff?
The main thing with our hiring is we have an old acronym that we use of it breaks down of you mentor, you hire smart, you mentor well, and when in doubt, out. Because there's some
Mm,
people that go into the profession for not the noblest of reasons, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily work out in that district. It could work out in another district.
mm,
You try to find the best and the brightest for the profession. You're not looking to hire people who are not going to have an impact on students and are not scholars of their field. And the mentoring piece is where we've been very successful. We've had a very strong mentoring program here for years. And that mentoring has continued on even beyond the requirements that the state put out many, many years ago in New York State. We exceed that each year. So that helps us tremendously to have those connections. So, between the cooperation between the teachers union and the administrators union and our board and our community, trying to support getting us good teachers in here is critical.
And that makes sense. So what you just explained to us is more when you have found a teacher at the right place. If I take a step back and try to understand, how do you source them? Like, what's your pipeline look like? Is it from a local university? Do you run some residency, student to teacher conversion programs, career switchers, or even veterans? Like, what kind of funnel do you have?
Well, it comes in multiple ways. We post our positions on a variety of different social media sites and also through our local news media outlets. But we also do hiring fairs with our local agencies in our area. The reputation of the district often leads to a lot of people applying, but there are shortages in different areas too, which I'll get into later. But so that's the first step. We also partner with a number of school districts around us to see who has similar candidates, and sometimes people are accessing positions, so we try to recruit from them if they're losing someone, or if we're losing someone, we try to send them that way. And then the university and college connection, we take a large number of student teachers. In fact, during COVID, we took 185 student teachers in the district. When all the districts wouldn't take anyone, we took them all. And many of those student teachers wound up becoming teachers here. So giving students in college level an opportunity to come to a great district like Three Village is a gift in many ways, to see what the expectations are for a high expectations of a high powered district, and parents that want to see the best education. So that gives them a challenge to try to adhere to. So that has been tremendous. So we have a lot of colleges on Long Island and that have worked with us in doing those placements. Right now, we're up to almost 50 placements just for this year, and they from over 20 different colleges and universities in the region. So we've been very lucky that way. And we have a lot of teachers who are going to be retiring from us. Out of our 530 faculty, 370 of them are going to retire in the next 10 years. Okay. So we're looking to bring these folks on and get them acclimated and hope that they try to apply for positions back with us as we move forward.
No, definitely that's a great strategy there. Also, sometimes I try to understand that the entire student teacher has evolved a lot over the 3 decades, right, of your entire service. So how has the fundamental role of a teacher changed from, let's say, 30 years ago to today in a classroom?
Well, I think in many ways the teacher, the standards that exist, there's a higher expectation of understanding of what that means. So parents are more familiar with what the expectations are now too, and it doesn't make any difference how the level of education of the parent. Parents are savvy with the introduction of social media. A lot more parents are aware of laws and regulations. So teachers have to be on their game at all times. Another big challenge, though, for a lot of teachers, which changed fundamentally, is the social media component. Whereas in years past, we deal with more issues from a discipline standpoint on things revolving around social media than we do with kids getting into fights. So the social media component, that's why New York State, with its banning of cell phones, which is a great first step, it's not the cell phones alone that's the issue. It's the social media contact for kids. And that's where the algorithms and the rabbit holes these kids go down for contact with individuals, and then the things they get involved with is just incredible. And this wasn't seen as something that was going to happen, have a profound influence on the educational process 30 years ago. It didn't exist. And now it has a tremendous impact. With the advent of things like AI, there's a chance for education to embrace that or be run over by it. So we have to look forward thinking in a lot of these things of how we can apply this and prepare students for careers and pathways that don't even exist yet. The kindergarten coming in now is going to go into a job that may not even be there today.
Right.
So, you don't even know what the possibilities are going to be. So
Mm.
it's we try to we give them the fundamental principles, and that's where the teacher now has become looking for that future aspect. And at the same time, with all the social emotional components, the teachers have become more counselors for a lot of families and kids. So you
Right.
see a lot of emotions running through the day for
Mhm.
students. Not just adolescents; it's all ages as they come through. They're dealing with a lot. So I always say I would never want to be 15 again in this time period with all the stuff that goes on for these kids. There are a lot of challenges.
Yeah. No, I personally feel happier in that way that I got on a social media when I was in college. Before that, like entire K-12 journey, I didn't have social media. So though my friends used to be on MySpace and other platforms, but they were still not that popular that I used to feel a fear of missing out. And I'm personally, I'm also glad I didn't grow up in that age. And also about the mobile phone banning, I do not have a very clear stand on it as an individual, but I have heard from some students that they are a bit relieved because they know it when it's banned for everyone, nobody's posting anything during that time. So they don't have that fear of missing out during those hours. So as a whole, they feel it's all right. But had it been partially and partially not, then of course it would have been a tough that for them to resist that
Of
addiction
course.
for sure. And of course, I think the teacher's work profile has evolved massively, where they were supposed to be a subject matter expert of grade 8 math. They have to be now a subject matter expert of technology. They have to be understanding full of computers, AI, social emotional learning, counseling themselves and the students and the parents, understanding social media. So they have to keep up with the kids a lot more. what what is trending among students, what new fad is going on. So in terms of like a
And
teacher's mind, it's cooked right now.
they have to be also conscious of their own reputation because even if they're
Hmm.
involved in social media, what they put out there about themselves, when we do an interview process, we run their background. So that means we pull in everything. We'll pull in things from Facebook, MySpace, you name it. We'll see everything. And it's, in some ways it's sad because if you made a mistake 20 years ago at something, it may come up in social media. Whereas,
Hmm.
when I was younger, if you made a mistake, if a note was passed, it was thrown in the garbage can, no one ever saw it again. If you write something or you put something out there about yourself, it stays out there forever and eventually it might get found. So it's a very difficult set of circumstances. You got to be cautious in this field because people look at you as, again, you're have an influence on their child. They're going to do everything to find out as much about you as possible when they know that you're in the classroom with them. And if there's something in your closet, it's probably going to come out at some point in time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely a little more, I would say you have to be cautious with your words, with your gestures than more than ever. So, which is a good thing as well as has their own, I would say, collateral damage sometimes when people don't have the bad intent. So there is a lot of cancel culture that comes with it for sure. And yeah, I think it's it's definitely crazy than ever before. Um, so I just want to understand why I'm asking all this question is because right now, if there's any aspiring folk out there who want to be a part of this education, uh, okay, one more point I forgot to mention is the biggest change is like company like us who are bombarding schools with so many new products and services. So I think in terms of the overwhelming factor of what all advancements this should be incorporated, which actually makes a difference, gets very blurry, right? So I think it's tough. Like I have talked to superintendent, they're like, oh god, every product looks like a new shiny object, and we have to deconstruct it, we have to simplify it before it goes in the hands of students. We have to do so many understanding that the bandwidth issues retain, and so yeah, in those regards, um, so I just want to understand, like, how do you instill the sense of mission and vision, like in teachers when you hire them during their onboarding process? Of course, they have the inherent intrinsic motivation to help students, but apart from that, aligning with your school goals, how does that look like?
So after we hire someone here, in fact, Monday of this coming week is our new teacher orientation. We bring all the new
Oh,
teachers in. and we have different groups coming to meet with them and do the onboarding process with them about all of the expectations in the different areas, right through from how you access your email to the mission statement for the school and what our expectations are. I always start some of the interview process with that. I always begin with the first question I always ask people: do you like working with kids? Because if you don't, you shouldn't be in the profession, because you're going to be with them more time in the day than you're going to be with other adults. So you really don't like working with children. And you'd be surprised how many people don't like working with children,
No,
but
I'm
they
not
want to be.
surprised. I'm not surprised.
It goes my mind that that's what you're going to be doing all day long. And that's your primary focus, that it's not about you and your ego, it's about the children in front of you, that what you're going to do to help them. So that process for us, we actually do a monthly meeting with their mentor, their district-wide mentors, as a group, and then we break into subgroups about different topics in their particular areas. But then within the departments themselves that they may be in, or the grade levels or the schools, they have their administrators and lead teachers in their respective areas that also touch base on a regular basis. So it's very hard to fall through the cracks in our system. So that follows the entire year. And that mentoring system doesn't stop just when they're done with the first year. We have our mentors working with people. Sometimes they have issues that come up when they're a 25-year teacher or a 10-year teacher. So we want to make sure that they know that those levels of support are there consistently. So it's very important. And the communication between the teachers and the mentors and the administrators is critical. So with that being very open, it's important for us to understand, like, how do we support them? For us, any hiring process is $100,000 investment, right, in anyone we hire.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, if we lose them, then I consider it like we just lost money by letting this person go. If we're not successful in making them successful, then where do we miss the boat? And we become very reflective about how we've addressed some of their concerns. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it works out perfectly. But you want to make sure that teachers feel, especially the new ones coming in, that they have those supports and someone to turn to, because there's going to be a lot of challenges that they have never faced either in a student teaching process or in an observation process. They've never seen some of these things. So,
Yeah.
and every, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, is different. So I've worked in 6 different districts in 2 different states. I can tell you that no 2 of them are alike in size, demographics, and all different things. Um, all generally concerned about the education for children, but the demographics of their communities, the values they have in those communities are all different, and
Right.
that sometimes creates difficulty for a teacher that isn't not familiar with that. So, first advice to any teacher before you apply to a place: look them up, figure out what they're about, look at their websites, drive through the district if you can, if you're near enough to those places, see what's in the community. Before I took a principal's job in a district, I stopped into an ice cream parlor and sat there and just watched people come in and out and looked at the dynamic that was going on. You have to understand that culture piece. That's so important to any environment that you're going to go into, whether it's education or the workforce in the world out there. You need to know what you're getting into, because if you don't, you may be gravely disappointed at some point in time.
And that's a very good advice to go there and just explore the area, have some ice cream maybe in the corner, and just listen to people. I think that's a beautiful idea to do. I'm not sure how many people actually do that, but yeah, it's a brilliant idea. And I think this is a definitely interesting, not discussed enough, is contractual versus full time teachers. So of course, because it's a fast moving space, I don't get to know often that a teacher is spending 20 years or 15 years in the same district, um, which used to be very common back then. So what's your ratio look like, and what's your goal to get people on contract more or full time?
Well, in New York, they don't refer to it as that. If you're hired with us, it's called a probationary position and then a part-time position. We don't contract out for teaching positions because they fall under a union in the district. So the work is theirs. So whether you're a part-time or a full-time, that's usually how it falls in place. Full-time teachers accrue time towards tenure. In New York State, that's 4 years to get tenure. If you've had tenure in a previous district, it would be 3 years. A part-time teacher, you don't start accruing time for tenure until you become full-time. So if you're not, if you're point whatever, point 2, point 4, point 6, when if you're 0.5 or above in New York, you get benefits. So a lot of people look for that. And then benefit package is almost on half the salary of a teacher these days with starting
Exactly.
salary. It's very, very expensive. And sometimes the benefits are actually more sought after than even the salary. So because the benefit packages have become, look for healthcare out there and see how expensive it is. So it's that's become a predominant piece. If people just go in looking for salary, there's some very high paying school districts, but the benefits aren't very good. So you have to be careful with that. And you also have to be careful that they may be high paying for a reason. The issues in the district may be extreme. So it's more like combat pay than doing anything else. So it's very very much an influence of that. So
Mm.
uh, the vast majority of our teachers are full time on a probationary track or tenured. So right now in our district, one of the leading changes, about 55% of our teaching staff is at MA 60, that's 60 credits beyond their master's, and at step 29. So as I said, we have a lot of teachers that usually step 30, most teachers are starting to retire if they have the age as well. So in New
Yeah.
York, depending on the tier you're in, we're getting more and more tier sixes now, the student teachers coming out and going into the workforce. Um, the tier fours are gone. The tier fives were a small percentage. It's more tier sixes. And that has an influence on the retirement package that they would have from the state. So uh, that has, in my experience, been something that has detrimentally impacted some of our students from thinking about going into the educational field because they look at
Mm.
that and say, oh, I've got to work until I'm 62. Now, realizing you're probably going to work to 62 or 65 anyway in some of a
Exactly.
profession,
Yeah.
but they think, oh, like this is a long time to work in one area. In my parents' generation, they had one job and probably died in that job.
Yeah.
My generation, they've switched jobs multiple times. This generation coming out of school may switch jobs, 10 times before they retire. So, but those that stay in that field, they have to be careful because when you start moving, you lose time through accruing the time to get those benefits when you retire as you get older, which again are very important because Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid won't cover all of it. So you might want, those benefits are very important, not just the salary you're going to accrue.
Mm.
So there's things beyond our control. New York State sets that standard about where this tiers will be, um, and that's what influences everything. There will be people that will argue that that's saving money in the state. That may be true, but it does have an impact.
Mm. No, that's a very well structured framework then in terms of probation to getting them full time, but or from tenure. But why I brought this up because with contract you can get away with a lot of benefits that are supposed to be given to a full time employee, right? And I could see this trend going up, especially starting with a lot of digital schools initially, where people can be from anywhere, uh,
Mhm.
and then it has slowly started to seep in because even on the instructional budget, schools can actually hire vendors providing their services. So there is a lot of increasing trend that I can see, not in every district, but in as a whole.
Right.
Um,
New York, that
also,
would
yeah, go ahead.
in New York that would be difficult because the way the unions work, if you're contracting out work that belongs to a unit, that unit has an ability to grieve that and get the position put back into their unit. So that's
Mm,
among the public schools at least. The private
mm,
sectors, private schools are a whole other another story, and
yeah,
certainly charter schools are a whole other story.
right, right. No, absolutely. Um, I also want to understand. I was reading about your school district in terms of attrition. It's fairly low, right? It's like you guys have been able to retain thanks to your mentorship program and all that. And I think your um, the the cost structure that you have defined in your head that every time we fail to hire someone or we have to let them somebody go, it comes with a cost because a new person getting in before they can start giving value output, we have to train them. It's gonna
Mhm.
cost money. So I think that the realization once it's get in the head of the employer, they start to spend a lot more on the other things, which will look minuscule as compared to the cost that will come. So I'm definitely appreciate you have a very corporate kind of ideology there, which people tend to not bring in at this public sector.
Certainly. One of the things we're looking at too right now is potentially looking at adding a daycare program because with the hiring of a lot of new teachers, we had 40 teachers out on leave last year because of pregnancies, whether paternity or maternity leave.
Hmm.
And with a younger staff, daycares are very expensive in this area. So it's averaging $1,500 a month in our region. So
Wow.
if you can make it more affordable and they're here, that decreases absenteeism among teachers too. If they have a daycare center where they're working, and you see that in trends in corporations, daycare
Hmm.
centers and businesses on the rise as well. Um, Before the trend with COVID, with everyone being remote. So, if it was in the office, it helped someone be able to stay and do their job. And that's something we're looking at right now. So as the aging or experienced staff, I should say, goes out of the system and the newer staff comes in and they have this crazy idea of wanting to get married and have kids. I don't know what they're thinking. Um, we want to be able to support that so that we don't lose them. That they're spending this incredible amount of money on getting their child taken care of as well.
No, I bet that idea came from your wife who is in healthcare because it's such it's a very common thing because again in medical field they have very erratic timings and long timings of work. So unless they have a childcare in the building itself or next to the building, it's impossible to actually have talent acquired. So I think great work there if you guys are incorporating that. So are you going to start this year or like planning to do that?
We're planning it this year, probably in place by next year at the latest. We used to have it years ago when we had every 30 years we had this trend of a lot of new teachers coming on board. So it existed here when I was a teacher here, and
Hmm.
it went away because there wasn't a lot of people that were interested in it because they were aging out, and now it's tending to come back because we have a younger staff.
Hmm. Or maybe you can have an external part as well where people who are not teachers can also drop off their kids and then it can become a thriving business within the school district.
Yes, yeah, that would help. Anything that would help with our budget, that would be great.
Absolutely. So, as a former principal and now as a superintendent, what do you think is the one thing that teacher complain, which is completely valid and should be addressed, and one thing that do you think is they complain about, but it's either unfair expectation from the administration or it's unsolvable problem?
The one thing I constantly hear about is the issues with certain parents and the demands they place, and I
Hmm.
try to caution them to be careful. I said, we spend a lot of our time focusing on the negativity and not the positivity. If you really calculate it out, we probably spend 98% of our time on 2% of the people. So,
Hmm.
and another 98% of the people you never hear from. So we need to change that dynamic and change the focus that don't just concentrate on the squeaky wheel of the person that calls you constantly. Think about that. And that's legitimate because I even hear it here at my level, people they have this ability they go from the teacher and they immediately want to jump to the superintendent. They forget that there's a level of
Hmm.
administration that could solve the problem for them. And with 5,400 students in our district and 4,800 parents, that's a lot of people that would attempt to make contact with me in my role. Willing to do it, but I have all the other people here that it can solve the problem way before it gets to my level. Um,
Hmm.
those things that that you get sometimes complaints from teachers about things that are just nonsensical, like we get wrapped up sometimes on things that are not worth having a discussion on. So you got to be cautious and not let negativity prevail in your field. We sometimes get into the weeds on things, and people don't see that it really is a wonderful profession. We have to make sure we concentrate on what's important.
Hmm. And that's definitely a good piece of advice coming from the higher ups because then it can definitely make teachers feel that whatever they're feeling, it's get validated from you. So absolutely. Um, I actually read something about the parent university on AI that you did. Is it correct?
Yes.
So can you tell me more about it? What was it? And like, I can ask you further questions, but first I would love to know about this parent university
It,
initiative.
Yes, so it's an initiative that began within our guidance and pupil personnel department. We actually take topics that are of concern or interest to parents and students, and we try to bring in experts to do presentations. During COVID, we started to do them more remote, where it was online and parents could sign in. And we before that we were doing it in person. Now it's more of a hybrid. We do either way. Um, even with the number of parents we have in the district, the most we get at some of these presentations, about maybe 75 people at a presentation. We wish more would come. And there's some discussion about maybe we mandate some of those presentations for them. But it varies in different topics, from how do you deal with social media? How do you deal with the child who has a drug addiction, suicide prevention, major, major issues that have come along. And we bring in experts. We're very lucky to have, as I said, universities and colleges within our area that we have a lot of good people, a lot of major medical centers around us. And a lot of those folks live in our district as well, so they're very willing to donate their time or give up their time to these type of things. And the response has been tremendous from the